Now, after the fiasco of last Wednesday night and the rushing through of legislation on the liquidation of IBRC, we now know that from the Minister's comments that the receiver was put into IBRC at 4 p.m. on Wednesday last. At that point, there was no barrier to the Minister briefing the Dáil of the need to sit late and have emergency legislation passed through the House. Instead, members of the House had to find out from Twitter and the Journal about what was happening, and to the extent that when the whip came into the Dáil to amend the order for the sitting, it was already on the Journal what he was going to do. I think that this was a deliberate and blatant attempt for the House, contempt for the House and the mandate of all TDs elected to this Dáil. The debate this week is organised as a lap of honour for the government, slapping yourselves on the back about the great job you have done. What have you achieved with this deal? There may be a medium-term gain in relation to the savings on interest payments, reported to be about €1 billion a year, although none of that will be felt this year. The government claim that the top-up on interest savings, that on top of the interest savings, it will mean that the deal has been reduced borrowing by €20 billion over the next 10 years. This is the same as the savings on interest rate payments. It is where the saving in interest rates comes from. And I've read reports that it will only lead to savings on borrowings of €8 billion over the next 10 years. So I think the Minister needs to clarify this. No one on the government side seems to be able to quantify what this deal will mean for the ordinary citizens. Will they get any respite from the relentless cycle of cutbacks and reduction in services? It is only when that is clarified that people will be able to evaluate this deal. But what we do know is what this deal has done is it's taken a debt that we had no obligation to repay and made it into a sovereign debt. The government have taken out an interest-only 100% mortgage in exchange for the promissory note. And even at that, we will still be paying 2/3 of the pro-note cost each year. And these gains only remain if the central bank can hold on to the bonds for the remainder of the term. The central bank has outlined that they will sell off €5 billion of the bonds between now and 2023. What will happen to the gains if the ECB insists on a higher rate of sell-off and forces it on us? So this deal makes some medium-term budget savings, but huge issues remain. Our debt to GDP ratio will remain at an extremely high rate of well over 110%. And where now for the agreement of the European Council in June of last year? You've made much of the game changer that was to break the link between sovereign and bank debt. But this deal solidifies banking debt as sovereign debt into the future for us. How will you ensure that the commitment of last June is maintained when you have accepted the principle yet again of linking banking debt to the sovereign? I think that we are seeing the death of the June commitment. And I think this was highlighted today in an Open Europe report where the German Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble has said that any bank recapitalisations through the Eurozone's bailout fund, the ESM, must be significantly below the €80 billion paid in capital. He stressed that there would be no increase in commitments or guarantees for the ESM to aid banks. So a deal based on last June's deal is getting further and further away. What level of funding will be available for bank recapitalisation when the bigger and more powerful countries get their share and our banks will not be indispensable for the stability of the Eurozone? In addition to that, the ECB has said that there will be no bank recapitalisation without member states guaranteeing the funding. That means that any legacy bank debt being picked up will only be done if we guarantee it will be repaid. So this is sovereign debt in every way. The only way to ease the burden of debt on our citizens was to insist on a write-down, but unfortunately you gave away the best cards you had. You were bluffed by the ECB, and although they gave in on monetary financing, the markets will be the only winners in this deal.